Welcome back, everyone, to Pleasure Playbook Podcast. Today, it is just me, Steph, here for a solo episode with you to talk about all things turn on for women. So, I want to share with you why being turned on as a woman is really the secret to getting everything that you want in this life, to creating the life of your dreams and having epic love, epic sex, epic relationship with money, and truly living a fuck yes life where every area of your life feels so in alignment and you feel so juiced up and turned on by this. And we're going specifically into turn on, but it's going to be a little bit different, probably from what you're expecting from me talking about turn on. This isn't just about sexual pleasure. This is about a woman who is living in her alive energy, in her full feminine power, connected with all parts of herself, including sexuality, including that sexual part of you that we all have as humans. And yet, so many of us are so disconnected. So, this week, Jenna is not feeling well. So, we're holding it down. We're diving into this, and she'll be back in the next episode for more juicy conversations. So, thanks for being here with me. And let's get into it. So, what if I told you that being turned on isn't just about sex, but being connected with your sexual power and your sexual energy as a human and specifically as a woman, the key and the fastest path to you getting everything that you want in this life. The fastest way to ultimate state of healing where you're becoming the most authentic and true and liberated version of you is through the path of sexuality. Because healing is not a one-stop thing. It is this journey that we're on for a lifetime, though it doesn't have to become our identity. We don't have to become so consumed with healing that we forget to actually live. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely been there. I've gone through phases where I'm just so obsessed with growth, which is generally how I am anyway. But sometimes we can become so serious about that we forget to really live and forget to really be in the moment and just enjoy and accept the space in life and the time and who we are in that moment and just be, to really just be. So, my question to you is, when was the last time that you felt truly fucking alive? Like, really alive? Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions in life? Like, everything on paper looks good and sounds good, and people in your life are telling you you've got a great life. Like, why do you want more? Why are you complaining? Do you ever feel like you're just going from A to B and you're living, but you're not really living? Like, not truly getting the most out of life, squeezing every little bit of juice from the juiciness that exists in this life and feeling like it's maybe just like a little bit meh versus you want ecstatic, orgasmic, out of this world kind of life. And that is in terms of every area: love, relationships of all kinds, with the purpose that you have in this life, with your work, with your friendships, with just every day to day, the way that you feel about yourself, the way that you show up in this world, and ultimately the results that you create in this life. So, what if I told you that pleasure wasn't something that you can just experience, but actually it's a way of life? And as a woman who has typically more feminine energy, it really is the secret to us being in our most magnetic state and for us creating the most, because pleasure is the domain of the feminine, and pleasure is our key and our secret to being the most productive, to being the most nourished, to being the most full and turned on, so that we're not constantly draining ourselves and pouring from an empty cup. Something that is really interesting to me: not only am I a sex and intimacy coach, I'm breathwork facilitator and host retreats, and that is my main thing. But in the last couple of years, since going through all the craziness of life and my life shattering into a million pieces and being able to really intentionally build that life back together, I also discovered Pilates and Legree and went into that field. So my mornings typically are looking like I am teaching 6 a.m. classes, teaching Legree, teaching Pilates, which I absolutely love. And I also work at Other Shit, which is an ice bath and sauna, hot and cold modalities, which also truly, truly love, getting to guide people and be around so many amazing humans. But here's what's really interesting working in those fields: having worked online for so many years, working with clients just online on Zoom, as well as my retreats, now I'm coming into contact with thousands of people every month. And something that I can see very, very clearly is when people, humans, men and women, are connected with themselves or they're not. And it's a scale, there's definitely a spectrum to it. But it's very clear to me when somebody is living in their mind or when they're living in their body. I can tell by the way that they're breathing. I can tell by their body language. I can tell by the way that they're holding themselves, their posture. And then if we have conversations, it becomes even more evident to me as to where they're at and whether they're connected to their true power or not. Because here's what's interesting. All of these things of us as human beings, we have how we share ourselves, we have our personality, we have our voice, we have body language. We're constantly giving off information to other people. We're constantly giving off energy and visual and vocal audio cues that are giving other people information, and they're forming assumptions about us as humans. And sometimes we don't even have to say anything, but we're giving off a certain energy or a certain vibe to somebody. And that can be felt with other people. And it also, if you believe in this, if you believe in energy and the universe or source or some kind of higher power, it's the same thing there. So just think, if you meet somebody and you've ever felt like their vibe's off, their energy's just off, without even having a conversation with them, you can feel it, right? If it's just something that's not right, maybe they're not authentic, or there's just something that's giving you this weird feeling, like gut intuition feeling that's a little bit off. You can feel that viscerally in your body. So that obviously works at a larger scale too, right? It works when you're trying to call people in. It works that other people are feeling you and the energy that you're giving off. And in the larger scale of the universe, it's just amplified. So back to me being able to guide people, I get to see where people are at with the connection to themselves. And what I know to be true is the people that are not able to breathe properly, because so many of us are breathing incorrectly. We're over breathing, or we're breathing just into our chest really shallow, or mouth breathing, not in an optimal, healthy way. If you're not breathing correctly, you're not able to be really in your body. You're going to be living in more of a stress response, right? You're going to have more of that sympathetic arousal, which is that fight or flight state. If you're living in that state, you can't also be living in the parasympathetic state, in that calm state. You can't be tapping into pleasure. You can't be feeling calm. You can't be creative and in flow, because if you're in a stress response, those two cannot coexist in the exact same moment. Similarly, when I'm guiding Pilates or I'm teaching Legree, I can see the awareness people have around their bodies. I can see if I'm guiding breathwork at the start of a class before we get into the movement, or I'm guiding breath cues throughout different movement practices, I can really see when somebody's in their mind and in their body. And here's the thing, if you're disconnected from your body, you are going to be disconnected at some degree to that turn on energy, to your aliveness, which is essentially just your essence of yourself as a feminine being. So it's really important to have awareness that maybe there's more, and maybe there is a world that you haven't yet explored that you could tap into to not only transform your sex life to going from maybe mediocre or a little bit meh or average to mind-blowing, to I need to pick up my best friend and call her right now and tell her about this experience because I just lost my freaking mind and was sent to another universe and back in that pleasure experience, or in that orgasm, or in that play date with my partner. That is the level that every woman has access to. Every woman has access to this really deep, expansive, orgasmic mastery and orgasmic potential. And just play with me for a second here. Imagine if you went into a job interview after having the most incredible, expansive, wild sexual experience, whether that was by yourself in a self-pleasure or with a partner. What kind of energy would you be in? If you just know you have been fucked to the moon and back, how would you be holding yourself? How would you feel in your body? How would you be speaking? How would you be sharing? It would be such a different energy from you not having had an orgasm in 3 or 4 years, right? Because there's going to be some degree and some level of blockage in your body, a little bit of stuck energy perhaps. And imagine if you're going out on a date after having the most incredible, long and nurturing, nourishing, pleasurable self-pleasure practice. If you're going into a date and you've just filled up your own cup, you've just turned yourself on, you have just nourished and touched your own body in such a beautiful way. Imagine going into a date, whether that's dating somebody that you've not met before, or first or second or third dates, like early stages, or with your partner, you're meeting them or you're about to go out for dinner. The energy is going to be different, because let's be honest, you know how it feels. That post-orgasm glow is real. You've got the oxytocin flow and the endorphins, the dopamine, your serotonin, everything is making you feel good. That's chemically what happens in the body after an orgasm. It feels so fucking good. If you are operating from that space and your energy is flowing and you're in your sexuality, you're going to show up differently, right? And do you think that energy is going to be more effective for you being able to receive and attract and magnetize what you ultimately desire versus being in a state of lack? And both Jenna and I see this a lot with the women that we work with, is that women can operate from this space of lack and this space of, I need a man because I'm horny. I need a man to satisfy me in the bedroom. I need a man to have orgasms, or a partner. I need another person to fill this void that I have. I need a relationship to make me feel whole. I need to find this love because then my life will be fulfilling, and then I'll be happy, and then I'll travel, and then I'll buy a house, and then. And it puts us in this state of scarcity and lack, and that puts us in this energy that is a little bit more needy energy versus the attractive, the receptive, the magnetic energy that we want to be in. So before we get into a little bit more, I have some more things to share with you that might be blocking you from really owning your pleasure and owning your power. But to share a little bit more about me and where my own story and where I'm at, just over 5 years ago, so 5-6 years ago, I was a very different person to the woman that I am today. I used to wish I was invisible. Truly, I physically couldn't speak up. If I were in a room with other people, I wished that I could be invisible so that I could be there and observe, but never have to speak, never be called on to share my perspective, because I was so insecure and didn't really have my own perspective in so many, or opinions about certain topics, because I wouldn't even let myself get clear in my mind about my own opinions, because I was way too afraid to ever voice them. And I would just blow with the wind. Whatever other people would say, I'd be like, yeah, that perspective or this perspective. And I just couldn't open my voice and share. And that showed up in every area of life. That would show up in my work life. It showed up when I wanted to make new friends or be social. It was hard for me to really put myself out there. And it showed up massively in my relationship. So whilst in romantic partnership or one-on-one with people, I could be very vocal and very expressive and very opinionated. In large groups, I absolutely could not and would shut down and not feel safe. But in my romantic relationships, I couldn't vocalize how I was feeling. We weren't able to have open conversations about where things were at, how I was feeling, what I needed. I was a very different version of me. I wasn't connected with my power. I had this deep sense of unworthiness, though I did not know it. When somebody first did some Reiki on me and basically dropped the bomb that unworthiness was a huge theme for me, I was triggered and basically in my head thought, shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't have an unworthiness problem. I love myself. And I thought I loved myself. I thought I had self-love. And the truth was, it was surface level self-love, because I was only living from my mind. So I didn't have awareness of so much of myself as a human. I wasn't tapped in. I wasn't connected. Therefore, in my mind, I accept myself. I love myself. Life is good. I did have a wonderful, wonderful life, but I wanted more. And it was only when I really, really, really shut the fuck up, slowed the fuck down, and started to put my ego aside to say, I don't really know anything. And I'm willing to go on a journey of self-discovery to actually figure out who I am, because I don't know. And the person that I have been showing up for my life up until this point doesn't really feel like the person that I'm supposed to be. It doesn't actually feel in alignment. And I'd feel this contraction sense where I would show up in a way as being shy or being reserved, and have that mirrored back to me as, you're the quiet girl, or you're the shy one, or you don't really speak. And I'd be like, ew, like it would give me the ick to hear that about myself, because it didn't feel true. And now I'm a very different version of me. I can't not speak up. Now I have such confidence in myself and who I am that I'm okay being wrong. I'm okay being judged. I'm okay being disliked, because that's not a reflection of me. It's going to be a reflection of other people who maybe just don't align with me, and that's okay. And if I am ever saying something that offends somebody or comes across the wrong way, I genuinely want to know that, because I want to improve as a better person. Final piece about where I used to be. so disconnected sexually. I was on the pill for 12 years. I had no libido and just thought, I'm just not a sexual person. Like, sex just isn't that important to me. I didn't really think about self pleasure. I didn't really think I was missing out on anything. I just thought I wasn't very sexual and I didn't feel sexy. And I was like, I just can't move my body like other women. I just can't orgasm like other women. I'm not that super sexual person who needs to wear lingerie and get dressed up and dance in the mirror. It doesn't really do anything for me. So I would just avoid and avoid and avoid. And that was closing me off from the potential of the big life that I wanted to live. I had such big dreams and have had my whole life, and I wasn't getting there. And once I was able to get a little bit deeper and live in this turned on energy, everything started to change for me. I started my dream business. I ended up getting engaged and getting married. And yes, we know that didn't last very long, but it was a beautiful part of my journey. And it was everything that I had dreamed of and everything that I desired. And there's a lot more that is in that story. I'm going to share a little bit more of how you can get insight into some of what actually unfolded if you're interested or care, because it is an interesting experience and I think helpful for you to get some insights into what ultimately did unfold, because I did have a really beautiful relationship. However, being in this turned on state now, I see that life is fucking wonderful and life is amazing. And I've been able to create that. And I am in such a magnetic state. And truly, I was voice noting a friend yesterday and was just saying to her, wow, I, for the probably the first time in my life, can truly say and have the awareness and gratitude around the fact that every single area of my life is in complete alignment. I'm in integrity. I'm turned on by every single piece of my life. There's no friends that I have in my life that don't fill me up. There's nobody who's draining my energy in my life. I don't have anybody that's like pulling at me and sucking that soul out of me, not in terms of any work, clients, people I work with. Truly, everybody in my life is wonderful. And of course, I've lost friends along the way, especially in the last few years. And that's part of the process of becoming who we're truly meant to be and the path of alignment. If you want to live in alignment, that means that you have to be willing to say goodbye and at two pieces that aren't fully aligned with who you are. And that can be friends, that can be romantic relationships in some cases, jobs, it can be hobbies, behaviors, it can be parts of yourself. And so death and destruction is a part of this path of alignment. So being in your turned on energy, being fully alive, just means that you're living from your heart. It means you live from this open-hearted, soft, yet magnetic place. It means that you're feeling deeply, that you can walk into any room and feel like you own it, not from an arrogant space, but from a place of, I know who I am, I own who I am, I'm powerful, and I got me, and I know what's meant for me will be. It really means speaking your truth. It means accessing deep pleasure and trusting that you don't have to chase and hustle or prove yourself, because everything that you desire is already yours. That doesn't mean you don't have to work hard in this life if that is something that you choose to do. It doesn't mean that we just sit back and don't do anything and hope and pray that things come into our life. Action is required, of course. It also means that you are able to be in a receptive energy to actually hold everything that you desire. So a woman who's really in this alive, this turned on energy, she's not going to shrink herself or hold back or dim her light. She's going to be in this magnetic, intoxicating, powerful, contagious energy where she really lights up every room that she goes into. So let's get a little bit deeper into pleasure. And I really want you to remember this. Your capacity to receive pleasure will determine your capacity to receive everything: love, relationships, money, opportunities, people. Everything is tied together and everything comes down to your capacity to hold it all. So if you're capped in one area, you're capped in them all. If you're capped in the money area, you'll be capped in the pleasure and the orgasmic potential. If you're capped in the sexual area, you're going to be capped to a certain level with money. So I really want to share with you a few things now that I'm going to go through them relatively quickly, but there are 6 different identities or patterns or behaviors that you might be living in that are going to be keeping you stuck and blocking you from really owning your pleasure, owning your power, owning your sexuality and that sexual energy from living in that turned on way. The first one, and this is really common with women, is people pleasing and the good girl conditioning. So are you a people pleaser? Know that people pleasers are the most sexually dissatisfied people because they're not speaking up. They're not putting themselves first. They're not stating their boundaries. They're going along with what the other person or people want because they believe that's what they have to do in order to be accepted, to belong, and to be loved. So people pleasing and the good girl conditioning, that is really where as a young child, you were told to look pretty and be neat and be tidy and be a good girl and show up well and do us proud and be well behaved and don't be too loud. And that has conditioned you. It all comes down to belonging and to receive love, which is necessary for our survival as children. We need to have belonging. We need to be loved. It's life or death. So just think about this for a second. If as a child you were told off for being loud and being expressive, silly, playful, and yourself, because your brain is not fully developed, you don't have the emotional capacity of discernment, you can create a meaning that if I am myself, I will not be loved. If I am myself, I will die. So think about how that conditioning can really fuck you up and create this really unhealthy programming and pattern that you can still be playing out as adults, and most of us are, unless you're consciously doing this work to decondition, to deprogram, and to gain awareness so that you can heal and finally slay these patterns and behaviors that don't really align with who you are and what you desire. Then you could be living in this for sure. The second one is your fear of being too much. So again, it ties pretty strongly to that good girl conditioning of if you were ever told you're too much, you're too loud, you're too emotional, you're too dramatic, you're too this, or on the other side, you're not enough, that is going to stop you and block you from really owning your power and your pleasure. The next one, and this one is a big one, is mothering men. I see this all the time and I used to do it. So no shade here, no judgment whatsoever. But if there's one thing that you take away from this pod, it is to stop mothering men. Please, if you're in a relationship and you are doing everything for your partner, you are destroying your relationship. You are destroying your polarity. Nobody wants to fuck their mother. Let's be honest. There cannot be chemistry between two people if one is playing the mother and one is playing the child. It's actually kind of icky when we talk about it because we can think that by doing those things, it's our way of showing love. And it's nurturing. Like the way you would nurture a child is beautiful, but you're not here, I'm assuming, to be in a relationship with a child. Like when I say it like that, it sounds a little bit fucked up, right? Like it's a little bit concerning. So if you are really over functioning in that martyr energy, doing everything, I have so many clients, so many friends, and I've been there and done that, where it is women doing everything. They're making them breakfast, they're cleaning, they're cooking, they're picking up his dry cleaning, they're ironing his shirt, they're making the bed, they're walking the dogs, they're feeding the cats, they're making sure the food is in, they're doing everything and mothering their partner in a physical way, but also then carrying the emotional load. Now, don't get this twisted. I'm not saying don't do anything for your partner. I personally, when I'm in a relationship, love to do things like make my partner coffee in the morning or make them a cacao and take it in bed, or once in a while, make them breakfast in bed. I say once in a while because I'm not huge on cooking, though I do make a mean breakfast. I can make a really good breakfast and I do enjoy that. But to me, that is truly a way of sharing love when it's not expected and it's really appreciated because I love and respect my partner and I want to show them love in that way because it feels good to me and they love to receive in that way. But that's very different from I do everything for them. And I have had so many clients who've said to me, they'd be fucked without me because I do everything for them. And I'm like, oh, honey, yes, they will be fucked without you and not do better, but because they'll be losing their mother, not because they're losing their partner and this woman that they truly are like, this is my person. And often that can be one of the reasons why relationships don't progress. And women who are designed to have a family or marriage, that could be a reason why it's not going there because it's like something's just not clicking for him. And he's not going to propose to his mother because your way of showing love is not the optimal way for a healthy dynamic in a relationship when it comes to having that polarity and having that opposing energies. So Mothering men has got to stop. And at the end of the day, the person that you're with is an adult human being. And yeah, there's compromise. Yeah, there's do a little bit for each other, but not keeping tally of one another. You'll know if you're in this energy. Like you will know. And maybe you've been there or maybe you're there now. And again, no shame, no judgment whatsoever, but just know your sex life, I'm guessing, is probably not as juicy as you would like it to be. I've not come across a couple where they're in that dynamic and they're having the sex life that they really desire and they're having the relationship that is really fulfilling and safe and secure. These things don't coexist. So please know that. And if there's one thing you take away, know that you can shift this, okay, with awareness, with consciousness, with both parties. But especially if you're a woman and you're in a relationship with a man and you're mothering him, this is going to require you doing a lot of work on yourself and just getting a little bit deeper into identifying some of these patterns and seeing, okay, why am I doing this? Where did this start? How can I shift this? How do I want to show up? What kind of relationship do I want? What does love mean to me? Really important question that I would love for you to get the journal out and to dive into. What does love mean to me? What were the early examples that you received around what love is that created your definition of love? So if you want somewhere to start, look at your parents or your caregivers, at your grandparents, at the people who were really there in those younger years as to what you were shown that love is with yourself and the dynamics that you observe. Because when we're little, we're in a sponge-like state. We absorb everything. So that is going to have created this conditioning and this programming to you around this. The next block to your pleasure and your power is being in competition and comparison. This could be with other women, which is really prevalent in this society that we live in this ultra competitive place where we're trying to always one up someone else, where we're living from ego, where there's not enough room for all of us to succeed and be amazing. So we're trying to put someone else down and step on them so that we can rise. And you've probably experienced this as a woman when you were younger with different friends, with different relationships with women as well, where it's jealous and it's catty and it's bitchy and it's competitive. And that is not the divine feminine. That is deeply wounded feminine. Most of us grew up with at least some experiences of this. And this also can really shift and determine your relationships with other people and with other women specifically. And this is a big one that I work on with the women who come to my retreats, is healing the sisterhood wound and really going deep into where you have been hurt by another woman, and where is that living in your body, and where are you holding on to that, and where is that keeping you stuck or keeping some blockage and energy living in your body that you don't need to hold on to. And how can we allow you to process that? You don't have to go into the experience, but going into the feeling and where it's living in your body. And the next piece around this, around competition, is with men. So if you are in a relationship with a man or you're desiring a man, you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to one up him. You don't have to show him that you're worthy and mold yourself and try and say the right thing and try and do the right thing and try and wear the right thing so that he will like you. And often this is coming from this deeper state of unworthiness, feeling like we have to prove ourselves. And it's super common. Again, it's just having the awareness, because a lot of this conditioning you wouldn't have chosen, but it's what you have. And it's now your personal responsibility to create the awareness and create the shift should you desire to do so. The final two hidden blocks to your pleasure and power are being in a victim mentality and the life is hard programming. And this I have deep compassion for, because if you've experienced a lot of hard times in your life, if you've experienced traumatic situations and things that are really wildly out of your control that have happened to you that you wouldn't have chosen. And I don't believe that we manifest and create everything in this life. But when something does happen, and when in some circumstances you are a victim to certain things, you can become the victim as your identity. And so giving yourself time and space to process, to truly heal, is necessary and is part of healing. And also being able to heal beyond that and not let that experience define you and not let that become part of your identity and living in that victim mentality. Because if you're living in life is hard and went on a date and it wasn't good as usual, it was a waste of my time and I didn't get the job and nobody's connecting with me and I just trying so hard and nothing's happening and I'm so sick and I'm so annoyed, that is being in that life is hard and victim programming. And you're not going to get what you want from that space because you're not in your power. You are becoming a victim to your circumstance and not owning the situation and taking full responsibility. So you can shift out of this, and also have compassion for yourself. It does take time to heal and to move through things, and having patience with yourself and not shaming yourself for not being where you think you should be by a certain timeline. The final block to pleasure and power, and this is a big one, is the Disney princess fantasy. We all have wanted to be saved. Let's be honest. I'll speak for myself. I loved the idea of meeting somebody. They were my knight in shining armor and fell in love, and it was amazing. And then my life was great. And this was my story. And I loved it, but it didn't allow me to connect with my true power, because you're outsourcing your pleasure, you're outsourcing your power, and you're waiting to be saved by someone else. You're allowing yourself to be chosen. And I think what's really important to touch on here about being chosen is when you're in this energy of magnetism, you get to attract divine love and a partner in a relationship where you are chosen, and you are being chosen every single day in the relationship for the rest of your life. And also, it's really important to not be living in your Disney princess energy, so that you don't just go along with it and get swept up in it, because it's easy to do so, because it feels fucking good to be chosen when there is somebody that's like, you, I want you, I'm going to show you, I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to wine and dine you, I'm going to do all the things, which can be love bombing. And Disney princesses are very subject to being love bombed. But when you're in your power, when you're living this turned on energy, you are the light of your own life. You are giving yourself everything you need. You operate from a space of desire instead of need. Very different energy. And you get to be the one to choose. You get to be the one to say, I choose this person, and I'm operating from wholeness, and they choose me. Very different energy. So these are your hidden blocks to pleasure and power. And the root of all of this is unworthiness, is shame, and this programming that we have of overgiving, and the lie, the trap of meritocracy, where the harder you work, the more success you'll have. That's not true, because some of the hardest working people have no money. If it was just work harder to receive more, we'd be living in a very different world. And there is more to it than that. As a woman, when you're overgiving, you're overdoing, you're trying to prove yourself, you're overworking, you're trying to earn your way to love, to good sex, to success, seeking validation, you will burn yourself out. You'll find yourself disconnected from your truth, from your power. And this is not going to get you the life that you want. It might work temporarily for success. And another invitation for you here is to get clear on what is your definition of success. Is success money, or is success a life that turns you on? Is it a life that makes you wet for it, makes it feel so juicy? So get clear on your definition of success, and think about success in terms of all areas of life: love, relationships, money, purpose, yourself, your relationship with yourself, and with pleasure. And by pleasure, I'm not talking sexual pleasure. I'm talking about the pleasure that you get to experience from the day-to-day in your life. When you own your pleasure, and when you own your power and your authentic expression, you become a permission slip for other women to do the same. By you doing this work and being yourself, you get to influence other people in a really positive way, and ultimately impact the state of the planet. By more women owning their power, the planet is going to start shifting. The collective energy will start shifting in a really beautiful and positive way. So to really access this turned on energy, feeling alive, feeling magnetic, because ultimately it is about getting into the state of magnetism, there are a couple of things for you to take home. The number one is, as a woman, as a feminine being, prioritize pleasure over productivity. So we have been programmed to do it the other way, to be productive, and then we get to treat ourselves afterwards with pleasure. And we're not talking sexual pleasure, we're talking pleasure. But that can lead to burnout, to resentment, to really lacking fulfillment. And biologically, we're different from men, so we're not the same. We have different needs, we have different makeup. So let's flip the script to access our innate magic and power, and that is to pleasure and then productivity. And this could be a micro moment. This could be something that you need to do. How can you make it a pleasure experience so that whilst you're doing it, it feels good and it lights you up? The second piece here is that your nervous system is the key to receiving. So your ability to receive love and pleasure and money is directly linked to your nervous system's capacity to hold it. Also, nervous system work is really important here. If your love or your success or your pleasure definition feels unsafe in your body, you'll reject it. You will self-sabotage it. You will not be able to receive and actually have that come into your life. So what is your definition of love? What is your definition of success? And what is your definition of pleasure? Really get into this. And then finally, we've already touched on this, but your sexuality is the fastest path to your power. Sexuality and sexual healing is some of the most powerful work a human being can do, because this will take you to untouched places within your psyche and within your body. Going so deep into such a taboo and shameful part of society and of yourself is going to uncover a lot. It can be uncomfortable and sticky and messy, and it is a little bit like opening a can of worms. So, warning label, be ready to have the support, have the systems in place so that you can hold yourself through. But when you start going deeper and you start unraveling what's there, yeah, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable at times. And also, what is going to be on the other side? So juicy, so amazing, because you'll come home to yourself. You'll find such deep acceptance with yourself as a human being. And that's going to allow you to create a fucking magical life that really fills you up and turns you on and makes you get to the end of your life like, I fucking lived and I was authentic to myself. And truly, what is more important than that as a human being? So if you get anything from this, I would like it to be this. It is really time to slay your shame. It is time to get clear on what pieces or parts of yourself or your life feel shameful right now. What is something about yourself that you don't want anyone to know, that it feels like such a contraction in your body, like no one can ever find this out because I'm so ashamed and I'm so embarrassed by. Get into your journal. And my invitation to you is to share that with somebody, because when you share, your shame is halved. Because when we share things out loud, things that can seem taboo or uncomfortable, that's where we take the power back away from shame and take the power back into ourselves. When we hide things and when we don't share, we're giving shame the power. We don't want to be living with this heaviness and with these secrets. So, can you allow yourself to get a little bit uncomfortable and get really honest with yourself about parts of you, your body, your sexual expression, parts of your sexuality, parts of your desires and fantasies that maybe feel like, oof, I couldn't tell anybody that. And on the note of desires, Jenna and I did a really great podcast around sexual fantasies that would be really great to listen, because we dive much more deep into this topic and share some specific examples as well, because that is a huge piece that where a lot of shame lives for human beings. Lastly here, your erotic energy is your life force energy. You have this erotic sexual energy that's fucking powerful. So why not use it? Why not tap into that? Why not allow yourself to experience more pleasure on a daily basis and become the most powerful version of you at the same time? If you knew that was possible and you have access to that within your body, why would you not tap into that? Why would you not want to own that part of yourself, knowing that could be the key to you creating this insane life that you desire? Because if you're listening to this podcast and you're part of our community, then you want more. You aren't willing to settle. You wouldn't be having voices in your ears if there wasn't some curiosity and some deeper desire that you have. And why not get a little bit curious that maybe there is something here to what we're saying? Maybe start to explore one practice or one shift and get curious to how that might shift things for you in your life, and specifically around love and relationships and sex, which are a huge part of our life as human beings. The person that you live with, the person that you spend your life with, that is ultimately the most important decision that you can make as a human being that will impact your nervous system, your health. Ultimately, that's going to impact the longevity of your life, of your happiness, and of your success. It really does impact everything. So why are we not talking about this more? Why are more people not investing in this part of their lives to grow and to learn skills around relationships and communication and navigating conflict and challenges that will arise in relationships when it's such a freaking important part of us. And the same thing goes with sex. Sex is a skill. We're not taught how to have sex. We're not taught how to show up, how to hold space for one another, how to hold and process our emotions and another person, how to move through triggers in any kind of close relationship. None of these things that we're taught. And yet it's something that we're all doing. We're all having sex to a certain degree, or will have sex, or will want sex, or have had sex at some point in life. If you're of consensual age, it will be a part of your life at some point. So why are we not talking about it? Why should this be a shameful topic? It doesn't actually make any sense. And the more that you dive into this, the more that you will see and feel the same. And the more that you clear your shame, and the shame piece is really key here, because that is what is holding you back from expressing more freely and having open conversations around these topics. And you can clear that. You absolutely do not need to live in shame. Shame is one of the most powerful emotions, and it has the most power for absolute destruction. Truly, I've seen too many people be disconnected and living this in this deep darkness and deep sadness. And a huge piece of that has been shame. And when you share that, and when you say, fuck it, I'm at the bottom, I'm at the lowest of the low, what's the worst that I could do? I'll share and I'll be open. That is that key, and that is the path to huge transformation. So please, if there's anything, can you have one conversation? Can you take one thing away? And maybe it just starts with a conversation with yourself of getting really honest in your journal, and stop lying to yourself, because we're really good as humans of living in denial and living in lies that we've created for ourselves because we're not ready for the truth. And that's okay, because we have to be ready to take on these certain pieces and areas of life and be willing to handle whatever consequences arise as a result of this. I know for myself, when it came to relationship, I had to be ready to face certain realities and truths about the state that my relationship was in. And I wasn't ready for a while. And so to have compassion for yourself. This work around sexuality, it really has so much power. And truly, I was thinking about it earlier, like my mission here is I really want women to live fucking epic lives. I want women to be having open conversations about sex, to be having incredible sex, to have the most divine, love-filled, incredible, supportive, respectful, nourishing, otherworldly relationships, because that's possible. That truly is possible. And that's going to mean that people live longer and can do better in this world and can change the planet, which maybe that sounds naive as a mission, but when people are truly living in their power, they show up differently. The work that they do is different. And that is how we can start to create massive change on this planet, is by us all doing the work individually on ourselves. The ripple effect of that on others is massive. And I don't believe that we need to deserve pleasure or deserve great love. It's our birthright. Pleasure is our birthright. Living a fucking epic life. Everybody deserves that just by being a human. That means by default, you're fucking worthy and you deserve everything that you desire. It's your conditioning. It's your programming. It's your beliefs that probably aren't actually yours that are keeping you stuck and keeping you small. And as humans, we're meant to grow. We're meant to evolve. We're meant to be changing, especially as women. We are constantly flowing and changing, and that's a good thing. We're going to be in chaos at times because we have different cycles that we're going through. We have different seasons. We have hormones changing. Chaos isn't bad. It's part of nature. It's part of the death and rebirth cycles that we are constantly living in. And I invite you to get curious. I invite you to re-listen to this and see, what can I take away? What little nugget can I implement? And if you have been curious about this conversation and you want to learn more, then you can dive into my Turned On masterclass. It is free. I'll put the link in the show notes. It's more of a workshop style. So it's actually 2.5 hours. We go super deep into everything that I've shared here. I go much deeper into my own story, my own journey, which I feel is really helpful for you to gain some insights and to hear real life examples of how I've used this work to create shifts in my own life. There's also some breath work in there and an incredible turned on activation, which is an embodiment practice to help you actually feel in your body what the fuck I'm talking about here, because there's a lot of information you're listening, though it's still at the level of the mind. And what is really important and at the core of the work that Jenna and I do is getting the fuck out of the mind and getting into the body. And so that's what I'll guide you through in the Turned On Masterclass. Let me know what you've taken away from this and what you have loved. I'll also link that fantasies episode for you. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are at. If you love this episode, please feel free to share it with a friend. Would also love if you like and subscribe, follow, and rate our podcast if you're enjoying it. That is really helpful for us. We can't wait to see you in the next episode of Pleasure Playbook. So see you back here again soon.